Ken Pieri in first place, with Donald Stern in the Lotus Super 7 along the outside. Field is looking pretty good.
Now that's interesting because Jeroenko was way ahead, but he did come in early this morning in the warm-up. So I wonder if something went wrong.
That's possible. Those 2000 Roadsters with their overhead cam engines are known for breaking down some.
Oh yeah, that timing chain tension is a real problem with one of those. It's the light bulb technology, real bright, but not necessarily for long. It's also an interruptible engine, I think, isn't it? Interference engine, yes.
Most overhead cam engines are, because they can be.
Yeah, exactly. And then what that means is the interference takes what happens when the timing chain jumps and the valves open up at a different time and hit the pistons. Not good. Generally will take care of the head as well, actually.
Oh, it does. It does indeed. I did that to myself, adjusting the cam timing in an Alfa Romeo.
Sorry, I'm very
suddenly
it just stopped, right?
Suddenly, yeah. Well, it made some funny clanking sounds first, and then we'd had no compression in 2 cylinders. Thankfully, we just grabbed a different head and put it on the car, but did not do anything for my self-image.
No. Well, was there a crowd of people watching, or were you?
No, just 2 people who really mattered. And here comes the Super 7 in the lead. That's Donald Stern leading the race with Ken Pieri. And then there's Steve Phillips in 3rd place in the Mini Cooper, followed by the number 41 MGB of Will Hart Jr.
Good going for a Mini Cooper these days.
Very good, very good. Well, that car is very well sorted. Brian Waters has built that car. He's a genius and a great driver in his own right. And Steve Phillips clearly figuring out how to pedal that car and make it go fast very quickly.
Which means basically keeping your foot in it, period. And just
absolutely
point with minis, foot down and point.
Yes, you need an excess of bravado and a definite deficiency of imagination.
It's true. You can get away with murder. That's actually one of the lessons to learn with the Mini. I don't know, does it work with the new ones as well?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, well that's useful to know. I actually have never driven a new Mini as hard as I drove my old one. So,
I've had my 2005 Cooper S out for hot laps around the racetrack, and I was catching Audis and things, and you know, ostensibly much larger and faster cars. And every time I'm out on this racetrack driving with gusto, I think I love motor racing.
Yeah, I love motor racing too.
And Dave Franks all over the back of Jim Norland coming through turn 12. Dave finally having gotten ahead of that Saab Sonnet that plagued him through most of yesterday.
Yes, I guess it's a novelty to have a Saab Sonnet that plagues somebody else. My experience with them, they just tend to plague their owners. Well, what do you expect? A V4 motor originally designed to run a generator at a constant speed, you know, with fiber timing gears. Because after all, there'll be no load on them, will there? Unless you put them in a race car, and then there might be. And we have a Lotus Super 7 Would be Donald Stern still in the lead.
But Ken Pieri doing a creditable job, and Steve Phillips doing a good job of keeping up with him. They're not going to let him run away. And look at Paul Ingram in the Ladybird.
Yeah.
Coming up in 4th.
And he is coming up too, because he's gained a couple of places on this last lap.
You know, Paul projects this this image of a kind, gentle, white-haired, white-bearded, grandfatherly sort.
Harmless.
But you know, you get him out on a racetrack, and he's really quite quick. And
so did he go to like the Rooney Watt School or something like that?
I believe he did.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, I noticed now Dave Frank's also ahead of Jim Sterling. Jim, usually a much faster driver in his MG Midget, but Frank's in the Austin Healey Sprite is leading now.
Well, I'm sorry not to see Richard May out here this weekend.
Oh, and now we've got a car off. We have
the Lotus Cortina.
The Lotus Cortina Mark I is off course. Looks like in the turn 4 vicinity, out in the middle of that vast field of grass out there. That's a good place to drive. If you're going to break down, you might as well drive to a place that's far away.
Someplace for a picnic.
Well, someplace where the corner workers can get at you and push you safe, and where you're not endangering other traffic and they're not endangering you. So that is...
Here come our leaders, unchanged. Oh, change.
That is Roger Andrisi in the...
Paul Ingram now in 3rd place.
Paul Ingram moving up. This is a level of speed that Ingram has not yet shown us this weekend.
No, he hasn't actually.
I think he kept something in the bag, and there he goes for the pass.
You know, he was just up here talking to us in the tower and complaining about his clutch.
Yeah, he was. That you know, the engine in that Ladybird has been out of the car twice in the last 24 hours, trying to chase down a clutch problem. But I'm guessing that I think he's got it fixed. Engaged. Now here's Sterling again, all over the back of Dave Franks.
Boy, this is smacking of old age and treachery. Yeah. You know, let me guess. You think maybe that the door of the trailer was closed when the clutch was being quotes replaced?
You know, personally, I'm thinking that Paul just drove it around in 3rd gear for a while.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know what's the matter. It's just not running right.
You know, at the Rose Cups 3 weeks ago, Nick Fluge, the event sponsor, offered a purse of $1,000 to win the Spec Racer Ford race among the SCCA cars, and then he went to Todd Harris, who of course owns Pro Drive Racing School here at PIR, and he told Todd that he would double that purse if Todd agreed to start from the back of the field. And in a Spec Racer Ford, these cars are all identical, and so it's completely down to driver skill.
Oh, look at this!
And we come around with Ingram having a huge lead on the rest of the field.
Can you spell sandbagged?
Yes, these guys have just been sharped by Paul Ingram.
Yeah, right. I don't play much anymore, right?
Yeah. Paul was up here and just saying, "Oh, I'm just out here to have a good time. I drive my car around. I don't do too hard or anything."
I'm getting old now. I should really hang this up.
Yes.
Well,
only one thing to say to the rest of the Group 7 field: you have been owned.
Yes, you all have been had.
Oh, Jim Sterling now ahead of Dave Franks coming through turn 12. But they're having a great race in some fairly evenly matched equipment.
Now, worth mentioning at this point, that Ladybird weighs 850 pounds.
And it has a very nicely built 1275 BMC A-Series engine in it.
Right, so... And a guy who's driven it for a long time.
Yes.
Which is also another factor. And it's probably had it in as many constituent parts as it's possible to take it to. That also helps.
It's like they used to say, the beware of the man who only owns one rifle. He probably knows how to use it. And you could say that about Paul Ingram. You can look at that car and its home-built bodywork and figure he probably knows how to drive it.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean. Oh, good heavens.
He's opening up a huge lead. Ingram in the Ladybird Mark 6 coming through.
He must be delighted,
Oh, I think he likes nothing better than to
he was way back in the field in the beginning. And
yes, that's true. He qualified 7th.
Well, that was, I think, actually...
Oh, in the heat race. That's this heat race results.
Any way you look at it, he was way back there, so he must be pretty happy.
The two alphas together, Denny Pillar and the number 06 machine.
Well, I think
of Mike Alfstad.
I think when this field comes off, we should basically make instructions to him. Paul Ingram to the tower, right?
Yes, I think we need to call him up and have him explain a little bit about himself.
Exactly. Is there anything you want to tell us
Yes.
before the stewards find you?
Oh, I don't think he's done anything particularly against the rules
No,
here.
I think he's had a good day, but I also think they've been owned,
Yes.
as you said. Anyway, as I was saying, I was disappointed not to see Richard Mayer out here with his Austin Healey 3000 because he always puts on a great show.
And
along the lines of this, actually.
Yes, he is a fixture in this racing group, and he makes that Healey go much faster than any other big Healey you've ever seen before, and he's the world's nicest guy when you meet him.
Yeah. Well, I would think actually he'd be. I can't imagine what happened to him that he's not here. He must be awfully disappointed.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the number 90 Porsche 356 and the number 41 MGB also having a great race. Those cars are very well matched. The 1600 cc's of the Porsche 356 and the lightweight and very stiff chassis of those cars works very well against the 1.8 liter MGB engine.
Well, but these are pretty solid too. They're not very sophisticated, but everything works pretty well.
Everything works pretty well, and you know, of course, the 356 is a fairly primitive design, and it goes to show you that, you know, those cars are way out ahead of some much more sophisticated suspension designs and engine designs.
We have number 19 coming off now. And that would be Ted Rogers out of Amity in the 62 356. Speaking of that.
Yeah.
And he's headed back to the pits, so I'm guessing he's got some kind of a gauge that's doing something he doesn't like. Not enough oil pressure or too much.
Oil pressure and oil temperature, really all the gauges you get in one of those.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but you know, when you look at the 356, you've got a pushrod engine, horizontally opposed Boxster, air-cooled, and you've got swing axle rear suspension. And no change really in our leaders.
Nope.
Top four still the same, pulling out a great lead against the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I think so. And basically, and they're coming up on tail enders now, back markers.
Yeah. With those 356s, you have swing axles, so the car will tend to rise up on its rear suspension and gain positive camber in the corners. And
which is an undesirable characteristic.
An undesirable characteristic, absolutely. And you don't have any adjustment at all, really, of camber in the front wheels. So you've got a fairly primitive suspension and engine design in the 356 Porsche, but the cars just work well. And the same is true with the MGBs. You have a solid rear axle, no adjustment possible, leaf springs. And the front end, minimal adjustment available there, usually adjusted by shimming or offset bushings. And you do get rack and pinion steering, which you don't even get in the 356.
That's true.
Worman sector gears in that one. And so it's not the technology that always wins in vintage racing. Sometimes it's just a well-balanced car.
Yeah. And a well-prepared car, which I'm thinking is what we're looking at here.
Well, absolutely. And as we wind down, there's the number 51 TVR heading off track. And looks like David Sweet rolling to a stop, coming counter course down the pit lane. Not a bad idea if you think you might be at risk of getting stranded on the front straight. But not standard procedure. He's gonna drive it to the pit lane.
He's going home.
That car has just not run well for David all weekend. And next up, we're going to have the historic stock cars. This is a truly exciting grid of cars that actually saw duty in NASCAR races, mostly in the 90s, but stretching as far back as 1964.
Well, looks like this race is over. And Paul Ingram in that Ladybird looks to have won it. Ken Pieri. And let's see, and in the Mini Cooper,
Steve Phillips.
Steve Phillips in third place. That's our understanding. But anyway, a very nice win for Paul Ingram, and he can come up here and explain himself to us at some point.
Yes, we'll have Paul up to talk about his victory, but right